Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Rebirth of the Red Dragon. Self-discipline becomes stronger. Chapter 91. Feeling everyone's eyes, Chloe gritted his teeth and said, "You said that Noxus is still under construction. When I came in, I noticed that the buildings in Noxus were half completed. And the construction was very hasty, plus you told them not to touch us last night. I'm just wondering if you are going to keep us." "Let's build Noxus," Chloe said, her own idea, and when she finished speaking, she hurriedly closed her eyes. She must be dead. But after a long time, the paw that was thinking in his heart did not fall. "What are you doing?" Shilin looked at Klaus, a little puzzled. "Is he so scary?" Klaus didn't know what to say for a while, but she was all right. "It looks like I really guessed it. The dragon wants to subdue their group of humans to build Noxus." "What's your name?" Shilin asked. Klaus replied immediately. "Hello, my name is Klaus Al." "Cross L, good name. I remember you, but there is one thing you said wrong." "Guess what you said wrong?" Shilin became interested in Cross and was clever. Could it be another incarnation of a god? He immediately used the system to probe to see the real body of Klaus. Name, Klaus. Biology, human, neutral, lawful. Attack, 1. Defense, 1. Speed, 1. Physique, 2. Item, none. Magic, none. Talent, wisdom, God's blessing, God level, war pro, God level. Ability, none. Comment, the talent is very powerful, and he is deeply cherished by a god, and he is the darling of the gods. The god of wisdom and the god of war are actually the same god. Named Athena, she is the god of wisdom and war. And this cross can be highly valued by Athena. At first glance, he is talented and different from ordinary people. Sometimes the gods will visit the room occasionally to see if there are any good seedlings who can believe in themselves. After this seedling becomes a god, then he will be able to have god believers. Cross is the ordinary person whom Athena fancy. But now it seems to have eaten the talent given to her by Athena, and other places are ordinary. "Sorry, great dragon, I don't know." Klaus knew that she would lose if she said too much, so she didn't dare to keep talking. "I just talked a lot, and so many things happened." Shilin saw Cross's mind. He got up and stepped forward. Bang! The huge body moved. Chloe was trembling with fright, and the dragon was indeed a very terrifying creature. Too big. A piece of dragon scale on her body was enough to crush her. "Listen to humans, I am not bringing you back to kill you, but Noxus needs a new force. I need you to join Noxus and contribute to Noxus. In Noxus, no races are allowed to discriminate against each other. There is only one race in Noxus, and that is a citizen of Noxus." Shilin's voice was sonorous and powerful, reaching the ears of every human being. Klaus raised her head in disbelief. This red dragon monster empire actually accepts humans. All human beings have a blank face. Did they hear voices just now? The red dragon, the head of the five-color dragon, the most arrogant and the most fond of cannibalism, didn't even eat them, but instead asked them to join the own red dragon empire. This is something that hasn't happened in the entire Western fantasy continent. "What, do you want to refuse?" Shilin pretended to be angry and silenced all the humans present. "No, Your Majesty, we did not refuse, but were a little surprised." The clever Cross reacted immediately. "This is an opportunity to save mankind. I must catch it, not for the sake of mankind, but only for one's own life." "Your Majesty, you changed your mind very quickly," Shilin said with a laugh. Point 0. Klaus lowered her head embarrassedly, and nodded with her fingers. "Didn't you say you want us to join Noxus? Then you are my Majesty. The words are pretty nice. I don't know if you are thinking of me as your Majesty in your heart." Shilin leaned down, her huge body covering the sky and sun, making Cross plunged into a shadow. Of course, Klaus was frightened to the ground by the sudden approach of Shilin. "I have to say, even if I know that the dragon in front of me doesn't hurt myself." But when this huge body approached, it was as if the sky had fallen, which made people feel depressed and breathless. "We are willing to surrender to the great red dragon." The human beings underneath are not stupid, they all reacted. Only a few remained indifferent because their relatives and friends died in that war. Shilin was not surprised by this. The emotion of the monster is not so heavy. Because the tribes gradually merged together during the war. If everyone really regards family affection in this way, it is basically impossible for the tribe to gather into such a large ethnic group. Cross, do you think the red dragon is cruel and terrible? Shilin threw a fatal problem to Klaus. The cruelty of the red dragon is something that everyone in the Western fantasy continent knows. Klaus knew this was the test of Shilin. Your Majesty, you are different from the ordinary red dragon. You are a kind and noble king. Cross understands that red dragon likes to be praised by others, so just follow this path and say no. The benevolent king. Ha, Mutu, I'll eat the unwilling ones. Shilin put away his smile, turned and walked to a high position. When dealing with the enemy, he strikes out, and when dealing with his own people, he doesn't say that he is amiable, at least he will not squeeze them. Mutu hurriedly led the desert werewolf towards the wooden cage. Klaus's pupils shrank severely when she heard this sentence. Why is your Majesty killing this group of people? Originally, she thought that because of her own compliment, Shilin would let go of those people who were unwilling to join Noxus. Never thought that Shilin's decision was to kill them. Besides, are this group of people dead-headed? If you can live and have the opportunity to join Noxus, why do you insist on going to die? With a red dragon as the backing, who dares to bully you in the future? Klaus felt that the group of people were stupid, and so stupid that they couldn't even make basic changes. But everyone has his own life, and Chloe will not intervene in these. The most important thing is that she cannot protect herself. Soon, there was an exclamation and scream from below, as well as the chewing sound of a cold back. It took more than half an hour before the screams gradually disappeared. Shilin sat in a high position and watched all this blankly. It is like a high god, ignoring everything. Cross looked back tremblingly, but the scene behind her frightened her into a daze. All the limbs underneath were mutilated limbs, and the bright red blood had already filled the earth, and the originally yellow-brown desert showed a coquettish big red flower. The earth was full of blood, and endless bloody mist was lingering. The scarlet blood gathered into a river, as if it was a real world, the underworld. Although Shilin saw this scene for the first time, he didn't feel much. In the Dragon Clan's memory, there are scenes 10 times more terrifying than this. Let them go, Shilin said. Peeps nodded and immediately wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, leading the attacker to open the wooden cages one by one, releasing the humans inside. But the people in there didn't dare to take a step at all. The outside was full of blood. Shilin didn't care either. They were all ordinary people, and he could understand even if he didn't dare to face this scene. Klaus quickly turned around to face Shilin. She did not dare to look at this scene again. It is terrible. Shilin glanced at the side, and even Olena, who had followed him for a long time, turned around in fear. It's right to think about it, Olena hasn't seen this scene either. Although the battle the day before yesterday was cruel, Olena only saw the tip of the iceberg. And this time it's really the whole picture. Cross, do you think I'm kind? Shilin asked with a playful smile. Cross has long lost her senses. Even if she is smarter, she is nothing more than a minor girl. She had never seen this kind of scene, and she had been dumbfounded with fright a long time ago. The clever tongue in the past, as if it was knotted, didn't know what to say. It looks like you think I'm cruel, Shilin said. Hearing this, Klaus eased her mind and said nervously, No, my Majesty, I don't, it's just that I have never seen this scene before. How could Chloe, who finally had hope of surviving, be willing to let go of this chance to survive? This scene, what scene? Do you think it's scary? Shilin turned Klaus around and let her face the underworld. Klaus only thought that Shilin was testing herself and forced herself to open her eyes to witness this bloody scene. It took more than a minute before Shilin stood up again to speak. Mutu, I don't like the smell. Clean the floor and set up this group of brothers and sisters. I have to say that Shilin likes to command Mutu very much. Because as Mutu said, they are the most loyal wild dogs. It's not that peeps are not loyal enough, but that the dogs are very easy to use and are always available. Don't worry, leave it to my Majesty. Seeing that His Majesty reused himself so much, Mutu immediately laughed from ear to ear. Peeps and Ramos are slightly disdainful, and at the same time they are very envious of Mew. Why did your Majesty only make him? Obviously they are also very obedient. Salmon didn't show anything. Shazong people don't like fighting, so they can do their own things silently. He knew that His Majesty would notice the great achievements of the Sandworm tribe. Longan is extremely sharp. Come out, starting today, you are also citizens of Noxus, and partners of our Noxus monster army. Bang! Mutu's sharp-edged claws opened the wooden cage, allowing the humans inside to come out by themselves. However, how dare the humans who have been scared to come out, for fear that Mutu, the group of desert werewolves, would eat them. Cut. Weak human beings. Mutu rolled his head in disdain. Really a weak race. Human beings should be eaten by them as food snacks. Why did your Majesty let them join Noxus? Human beings did not answer, but embraced everything and closed their eyes. What about the boss? The other desert werewolves were at a loss. Your Majesty asked them to put the humans in place. Now this group of humans are shrunk in a cage and dare not come out. This tells them how to arrange. Just when all the werewolves didn't know what to do, Klaus, standing on the high platform, finally recovered. Everyone, you are now citizens of Noxus. The desert werewolves won't hurt you. Come out. Your children need the comfort and company of their parents. Cross hopes to draw the adults out of the crowd first through motherly love and fatherly love. The adults who heard the words of Chloe looked at the crying children in the cage. The next moment, as a woman stepped out, other adults came out one after another. Maybe they are very timid, trembling with fear all over, but in front of the child, they are willing to show the fortitude and let the child feel at ease. It's okay, kid, I'm mom. I have come here, don't need to be afraid. Didn't you still say you wanted to be a hunter? Your father is gone, you are the only man in the family now, how can you cry? The comfort of the adults gradually sounded, and the cry of the child became smaller and smaller. After seeing this group of people go out without incident, the other human beings who were left in the wooden cage also slowly walked out. In less than 3 minutes, all human beings walked out of the wooden cage and stood on the land of Noxus. Leader, they are all out, and they don't seem to be afraid of us anymore. The desert werewolf felt a little unbelievable. Why did the cowardly human being just become brave all of a sudden? Mutu did not speak, but raised his head to look at the injured Chloe on the high platform. Interesting, because one sentence changes the character of human beings. It's worthy of being a human whose Majesty said a few more words, maybe he will be another dragon's messenger in the future. The dragon messenger is Olena's current identity. Shilin did not say or bestow the identity of the dragon messenger on Olena. This identity was put on Olena by the monsters themselves. After all, Olena's figure is inseparable from your Majesty, and the relationship with your Majesty is inseparable. Isn't it a dragon's messenger or something? Mutu now doubts whether Cross will be the next dragon messenger. In any case, Mutu has decided to have a good relationship with Cross, at least not to have any evil. Since Noxus was only half established, even the monsters' dens were tattered, and even a pit was dug as an old den. Monsters can do this, but humans certainly can't. The temperature of the desert at night will plummet, and monsters have thick fur to resist the cold, which humans can't do. This is why the monsters don't raise humans like giant dragons. They are too delicate and can't afford them. But if your Majesty let them become citizens of Noxus, they can't freeze to death overnight. Your name is Klaus, right? Mutu raised his head and looked at Klaus. Klaus nodded hastily, then quickly walked down the stairs and came to Mutu. Yes, my name is Klaus. I am the leader of the Wolf Fang tribe desert werewolf, Mutu. Mutu stretched out his wide paws, seeming to want to shake hands with Klaus. There is no rule of shaking hands between monsters. It's just in Mutu's impression that there is a rule of shaking hands and making peace among human beings, and only friends will do that. When she saw Mutu's claws in the depths, Klaus was startled at first, and then she saw that this desert werewolf seemed to shake hands with him. Thinking about it, Klaus stretched out her delicate right hand hesitantly. Seeing Klaus stretched out, Mutu gently held it without saying a word. According to your human rules, we should be friends now, right? Mutu didn't quite understand this. Friend, Klaus was a little surprised. It was incredible that the leader of a tribe would take the initiative to be friends with him. What, isn't it? Mutu was a little irritable. Humans are indeed a group of complex creatures with so many rules. Like a monster like them, to like this friend is to like, never ambiguous. To hate you is to hate, and never ambiguous. For example, now, the other 3 tribes are unhappy with the Lengya tribe. Mutu tried to ease the relationship as soon as he started. As a result, none of the leaders of the 3 tribes was willing to accept it, so he ignored it. Daddy is just a licking dog of your majesty, you are not worthy. No, it's just me. I don't know what to say, how can you understand the handshake between humans? Klaus hurriedly changed the subject, and of course the inner words could not be said directly. Cut, just hearsay, your human affairs are in our monster group, it is also quite widespread. Mutu explained. Although humans can't compare to monsters in Shantian, they are the largest ethnic group in the world after all. There are things about humans everywhere in the Western fantasy continent. In terms of topic heat, it is almost exactly the same as the giant dragon. I didn't expect this. Chloe was no longer so restrained, and tried to smile, but it was a bit of a forceful smile. It's nothing, aren't our monsters often held in your mouth by your humans? I heard that there is also a monster illustration book among your humans, specifically to identify what kind of monster we are. Monster illustrated book is something made by adventurers in order to distinguish monsters in the wild. They wrote what they saw and heard about their own in the monster book. It records the appearance and name of the monsters, as well as their life habits and personalities. If it is a kind and lawful monster, you can try to make friends, because they tend to have a Shantian goodwill towards humans. And if it's a chaotic and lawful monster, don't provoke it if you don't provoke it. Although they are still on the side of kindness, if you accidentally touch them, there are some taboos. You may still have to pay a bitter price. But most chaotic lawful monsters are kind. There is also a chaotic, evil, complete monster like Shilin. Human beings will definitely kill them when they see it, but they will turn around and run when they see it. The 2 are mortal enemies. The monsters on the Western fantasy continent are mostly chaotic and evil, followed by chaos and lawfulness, and finally good and lawful. In fact, there is also a neutral race. This kind of race means that people don't offend me, and I don't offend people. If people offend me, I will kill your whole family. Not only that, the monster illustration book also has the weaknesses of each monster and their stunts. Among them, even the dragon is recorded, and in the monster book, the dragon has a unified evaluation. The only weakness of the dragon is the inverse scale. Only through this can the dragon be killed, but if you are alone, it is best to pray for one more pair of legs when you encounter the dragon. This is the oppressive nature of dragons on humans. Monster illustrated book is an essential daily necessities for adventurers. It's just that the monster illustration book is very incomplete, and all are the products of patchwork. If you accidentally buy a pirated version, you may get the wrong name of the monster, and you may be in danger. For example, this was originally a chaotic, lawful or neutral monster, but the illustrated book records that he is a chaotic and evil monster, and his strength is still weak. After that, an endgame will be staged. In our original city-state of Akiria, only the children of the nobles had monster illustrations. Commoners like us have no spare money to buy. Klaus shook her head. The more remote the place, the rarer the monster book. It's a pity that we don't have a human picture book, but we have a unified goal in our monsters. The younger the human, the more delicious it is, especially for women like you. Mutu showed his 2 canine teeth as he spoke, and there was still drool hanging on the canine teeth. Seeing that Cross was afraid of Mutu's wild hair, he ate himself a bite and took a step back subconsciously. Don't be afraid, you have obtained your majesty's permission now, we will not eat you. Mutu noticed Klaus's little movements. Is their monster really so terrible in the eyes of humans? In fact, the monsters are all very tall. The average height of desert werewolves is about 4 meters, what about humans? 2 meters high is very difficult to see. Most men are about 1.8 meters tall, while women are about 1.8 meters tall. Not even 1/2 of the average height of a desert werewolf. The 2 stand together, as if an adult is looking at a child who has just entered the kindergarten class. I understand, can you tell me about Noxus? Klaus needs to understand the rules of Noxus, so as not to accidentally touch them. Rules. Our Noxus rules are very simple. We can't kill each other and assassinate each other. If there is a fight, we can compare it on stage, as long as we don't touch our lives. We only surrender to the strong. The stronger the monsters are, the more respected here, even your majesty said. If someone can defeat him, there can take his place, but that is your majesty, a symbol of invincibility. If your human strength is very strong, it's not impossible for us monsters to admire you. We take strength first. Mutu briefly told Klaus what Shilin had said. Klaus summed up one point: this is an empire respected by strength. She can accept this. No, all human races in the Western fantasy continent can accept it. In the human world, birth determines dignity and inferiority. If you were born into a nobleman, then you were born to enjoy endless glory and wealth, and you also have noble privileges. Killing is just your entertainment, and the law is of no use to the nobles at all. And if you were born in a poor family, you would have to grit your teeth even to be an adventurer and earn some money for most of your life before you can go to the academy to learn magic and fighting skills. Illustration: an adventurer is an adventurer all his life, and a commoner all his life. What do you think of us in Noxus? Mutu asked. Cross nodded happily. Very well, this is something we humans can't even imagine. Really, now that I make a good proposition, this group of human beings will be handed over to you. You take them to clean up the house while it is still early, so as not to freeze to death at night. I need to take the wolf cubs to clean up these things now. Mutu looked at the floor that caused his headache. It was all bloody. I just know that it's not so messy when I eat. Getting the money, huh? Give it to me. Cross pointed to herself in disbelief. She didn't have any abilities and couldn't control this group of people. Well, don't worry, I will give you 10 desert werewolves to manage them, and throw them out if they are disobedient. Mutu smiled slightly. This is the smile of the werewolf. He understands what Shilin means. Do you think that joining Noxus now is certain that the monster will not hurt you? If you have any dissatisfaction in Noxus, the monster doesn't mind eating you. Of course, if you receive dissatisfaction from others' deliberate oppression, Noxus is willing to do justice to you. Seeing that Klaus hadn't replied for a long time, Mutu stood up straight and shouted to the crowd, now. You are under the control of Klaus. Whatever she tells you to do, who can say something about it? Picture of Chloe. The human beings underneath looked at each other when they heard it, where they dared to have an opinion. If there are any opinions, the next moment will have to go inside the monster's belly. Seeing that everyone has no opinion, Mutu looked down at Klaus. Look, everyone has no opinion. The corner of Klaus's mouth twitched. Is that okay? You are so scared that you dare not say anything. Anyway, now this group of people handed over to you, Chloe. I will now take the wolves to find something to clean the ground. Mutu blessed these words and left 10 desert werewolves for Klaus. Then he left with the Lenya tribe. Other races did not choose to stay in place to watch the show, but went to work on their own affairs. Looking at the desert werewolf standing next to him, Klaus coughed in his throat. Ahem, then you can go with Chief Mutu, as long as there is one of me here. Klaus couldn't bear the desert werewolves staring at her around. The desert werewolves looked at each other, then nodded, turned and left. Originally Mutu told them to be next to Cross. This group of werewolves were not very happy. Let a human send them, it is better to let them die. After all, Noxus has just been established, and many things have not really changed. The inherent thoughts still exist in the monster's mind. Seeing that the desert werewolves had left, Klaus came to the crowd. Everyone, we are the only humans left here, do you have anything to say? Klaus's eyes were a little dodging, and the eyes of a group of people made her a little uncomfortable. We listen to you. Although I don't know why the dragon is willing to take us in, let's take a step at a time. Yes, miss, it seems that the dragon trusts you very much, and we are willing to listen to your instructions. Cross, you were smart since you were a kid, what do you say? Among the living people, some of them knew Cross in the first place. I heard from Chief Mutu just now that the temperature in the Death Desert will drop rapidly at night. We humans don't have the thick fur of monsters. CHBB must make a room for myself and spend the evening before it's still early. Klaus put her index finger on her chin and frowned. This is the problem they need to overcome at present, and survive tonight. Let us build a house. We are carpenters. Although we cannot build a good wooden house, it is still possible to build a house that provides warmth. A group of carpenters walked out and nominated themselves. But it's difficult to build wooden houses made by so many people in one day. Chloe glanced at it. Minus the people who were just killed, there are now nearly 30,000 people. Yes, we young adults will help. The young and middle-aged groups have also come out at this moment. This is when they coexist and die, and they cannot tolerate the slightest amount of carry. Everyone needs to do their part. As a result, women and children, carpenters led young and middle-aged people to build planks, and began to build at an extremely fast speed. Cross ran to the center high platform to command, and by the way, check if anyone be lazy. Rear palace. The rest of Noxus is very shabby, but the palace belonging to the dragon is not sloppy. It seems to be tall and high-end, all built with sand, stone and planks. It was a model built according to the memory of Shilin's previous imperial palace. What do you think of Klaus? Shilin looked at the huge mirror in front of him and asked. In front of him, a 20-meter-high mirror was placed in the center, and the whole body exuded fiery flames. The scene inside was a scene of the people working outside. Red pupil mirror. A kind of surveillance magic, using some common sand and soil materials, and then try to show the magic. You can monitor every move on your own territory, and any wind and grass can't hide from the red pupil mirror. The most important thing is that the red pupil lens can be put away at any time, which is very convenient to use. My Majesty, this human being is very interesting. Last night, Ramos stood beside Shilin, talking about what happened last night, and telling how Klaus resolved the crisis. There is also this interesting thing. She looks only 11 or 12 years old now. Shilin became completely interested in Klaus, a talented human being. Olena next to her bowed her head silently, and she was complaining in her heart, "What? Your Majesty, you are only 3 years old. Olena, what do you think of Klaus?" Shilin asked Olena next to her to see what her human opinion is. Olena regained her consciousness and quickly said, "Klaus is very smart." Shilin, 1_1. Ramos, confused face. Is this different from no answer yet? Sorry, Your Majesty. I just thought of something else. Olena found out that she had made a mistake in her words, and she buried her head a little bit shyly. What did she just say? What are you thinking about, Olena? Shilin looked at her angrily. Now you are having a small meeting, you are distracted. I was just thinking about what Princess Elisa should do. Olena was anxious and turned the topic to Elisa, who was sleeping next to her. Elisa, so, I almost forgot about her. Shilin turned to look down at Elisa, who was lying behind her like a dead person, and the dragon's tail covered with spikes lightly waved. When the dragon's tail hit the red pupil mirror, the red pupil mirror suddenly turned into a flame and dissipated to the ground. As if it had never appeared before. If it hadn't been for Olena's reminder, Shilin's attention would have been completely attracted by Klaus. Your Majesty, is this the Princess of Akalia city-state? Ramos did not expect that His Majesty would arrest the princess of the city-state of Akria. He said that he led the Tuthi tribe to find the princess and prepared to dedicate the princess to His Majesty, but found nothing. His Majesty, who was originally from home, has already made the first step. 3 eyes stared at Elisa lying on the ground. Your Majesty, I'll leave first. Ramos thought for a while. Let's go by himself. I don't know what to do if I stay here. Yeah, Shilin nodded his head. Ramos got the approval of Shilin, then turned around and left the palace quickly. Your Majesty, what do you plan to do with her? Olena asked curiously. Shilin thought for a while and decided, keep her. After all, this is a buff to increase attributes, so how could I miss it? Besides, Elisa looks good wrong, keeping her eyes seductive. Look at him, Noxus, they are all ugly monsters. I was afraid that after watching it for a long time, I changed my own aesthetics. Keep it. Olena was a little bit happy in her heart, she was also a human being. Of course I don't want to see Elisa die, it's really a pity. Wake up. Shilin sighed at Alicia, waking up Alicia before speaking. A cloud of red anger enveloped Elisa, but after a while, Elisa's fingers moved. Then the eyelashes moved slightly, and then the golden eyes were faintly opened. Where am I? Alicia felt a little confused now, as if she had slept for a long time. Hello, my name is Olena, and welcome to Noxus. Olena stepped forward and introduced herself, hoping to dispel some fear for Elisa. Olena Noxus. After hearing Olena's voice, Elisa finally woke up, her eyes suddenly widened. A majestic red dragon reflected in her eyes. The dragon. Elisa was so frightened that she rode her body, and she finally saw everything around the palace. Are you in a dragon's lair now? Don't be afraid of Alicia, big sis, we won't hurt you. Olenna hurriedly stepped forward to try to comfort Elisa. But Alicia's attention was all on Shilin's tall building-like body. You are the dragon that attacked the city-state of Akiria. No, my father. Elisa realized that her father was wrong. The dragon took himself back to the lair. Doesn't it mean that own father is dead? Thinking of this, Elisa lowered her head in despair, and her tears were crystal clear, dripping on the ground continuously, wet the ground. Elisa, big sis, what are you crying for? Olenna is a little bit at a loss, how to say it well. Why are you crying? Was it scared by your majesty? But the first time I saw your majesty, I was not scared to cry. Well, indeed, I was not scared to cry, but scared to be stupid. What are you going to do to me? Kill me? Alicia slumped on the ground. She knew she would not survive, but it didn't matter. Both the city-state of Akiria and his father had forgotten, and he had no intention of living. What are you talking about, Alicia, big sis, we won't kill you. Hearing Elisa's words, Olenna didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I killed you a long time ago, so how could I keep you till now? Then what are you doing? The city-state of Akiria is gone, and my father is dead too. I don't know what I am still alive, kill me the dragon. Elisa spread her arms to face death calmly. You may be mistaken a little, the city-state of Akiria is indeed gone, but your father is not dead. Shilin was silent for a while and finally spoke. How could Aklia die? As the king of the city-state, the monster army knows that people of this status cannot be killed and must wait until His Majesty decides. Now Aklia is being held alone in order to avoid any accidents to him. What? My father is not dead. Elisa's lifeless eyes bloomed with a hint of color. Yes, Elisa, big sis, your father Aklia is not dead, he is just being imprisoned by your majesty. Olenna smiled slightly. I beg you, great dragon, can you not kill my father? I am willing to use this young body to sacrifice to you, I just hope you can let go of my father. With that said, Alicia was anxiously preparing to take off her dress without waiting for Shilin to speak. It's a pity to see Shilin, what kind of operation is this? By the time he reacted, Elisa was already full of light. Olenna's company was suddenly covered with a layer of rosy clouds, and she turned her head and dared not look at Elisa. Really, they are still here. Can't you wait for me to come back again? This is very embarrassing to me. Now it's not going to go, it's not going to keep it, I don't know what to do at all. Do you think I need these? Shilin pretended to be calm and looked at Elisa, but in fact he was blushing. This is the second time I have seen the girl of the holy light. But a great dragon, I have nothing but this young body. Elisa thought Shilin disagreed, and despair struck again. I will not kill your father, but you must swear to serve me forever and give up your soul. Other dragons who subdue their relatives will never collect souls, only Shilin is an outlier. He only believed that such dependence would not betray him. The entire Noxus, except for Katerina and Olenna, the souls of everyone else are in his own hands. Katerina is obedient to her words, and Olenna is purely the incarnation of a god. At present, in terms of your own strength, it is best not to move first. I control the life and death of everyone. After the humans settle down, they will definitely collect it. After all, the predecessor himself was a human being, and he knew how difficult Taoist's heart was to control. I love Lisa Ackley, and I am willing to serve you forever. Here, I am willing to dedicate my humble soul. In order to keep her father alive, Elisa agreed without hesitation. At the same time that Alicia swears, Shilin used undead magic to collect the souls sacrificed by Alicia. Very good, now put your clothes on. Shilin accepted the soul with satisfaction, the only way to rest assured. Your Majesty, you don't. Alicia didn't expect that this dragon really wasn't going to do that kind of thing. I said, this won't tempt me, human. Shilin said that he could do nothing. Only when oneself becomes a young dragon, oneself can turn on the ability to reproduce. Although it is okay now, it will hurt some foundations and affect its own strength. Daniil thought the same way at the beginning, but she reached the ancient dragon stage without knowing it. Without fertility, she even more didn't want to find a red dragon, 183, as a company, which led to her nickname as the Flame Dragon Mother. In fact, he has been a single dog for more than 2,000 years. Red dragons are not a single animal, many of them are excited. After the male red dragon gave birth to a cub for his own bloodline, he would go away at ease again. Never think about the family. The female dragon is okay, she will take the young dragon to the young dragon stage and then leave, and the more responsible will bring the young dragon to the young dragon. I understand, Your Majesty. Elisa immediately picked up the clothes on the floor shyly and put them on herself. It's too pressing for me to be like this. If only Your Majesty wants it, there will be an Olenna next to it. Olenna opened her eyes secretly and looked at Elisa in the audience. You can go out now, and the group of people may see you go again and feel more at ease. Shilin made way for Alicia and let her out. If the people of Acria see that their princess is still alive, their hearts will be more stable. After all, the princess is the flagpole in the hearts of those people. Alicia nodded, and was about to get up to go out. She stopped as soon as she took a step and turned to look at Shilin. Your Majesty, when will you let my father go? Don't worry, I will pay you back, but not now. Shilin will not give in to Elisa. He wants to let Elisa know that this is a rare reward for him. I understand, Your Majesty. Eliza knew that Shilin would not hurt her father, so she left decisively. When Elisa left, Olenna opened her eyes. Why are you pretending to be there? Haven't you seen it all? Shilin touched Olenna's head with her paw rather speechlessly. Oh, Olenna touched her head aggrievedly. Your Majesty's claws are bigger than hers, and he almost knocked her out of a concussion. What do you think of Alicia? Shilin asked, staring at Alicia's departure. Ah, Elisa big sis has a very good figure. Olenna blushed. Why would Your Majesty ask such a shy question? When Shilin heard Olenna's words, his face suddenly drooped. I didn't ask you how Elisa was in shape, what I asked was what you think of Elisa. Shilin couldn't figure out what Olenna's little head was thinking. Olenna, outside, Princess Alicia. When everyone saw Elisa, they exclaimed that the princess was still alive. They all thought that the princess had been killed by the dragon. But why does Princess Alicia have 2 lines of tears on her face and her hair is still messy? The clothes are still a bit untidy. Recall that the princess came from the palace. The most famous dragon on the mainland is not its strength, but that aspect. Think carefully. Alicia didn't know what they were thinking, and if she did, she didn't know how to explain it. Everyone, now that Your Majesty is willing to take us in, we should try to live. The desert at night is very cold, we should now. Eliza also wanted to talk about building houses, but she found that everyone was doing it now. Don't worry, Princess Elisa, Miss has already commanded us. The carpenter pointed at Chloe, who was about to come down, with a smile. Cross. Alicia looked in the direction the carpenter was pointing. Hello, Princess Alicia. This is Klaus. Klaus was a little excited to speak at this time. It was the first time to see a living princess in Arclia city-state life for a few years. Hello. Alicia smiled softly. Are you directing these? Not really, I just see if anyone is lazy. Klaus was a little shy when Elisa was praised so much, and she was praised by the princess. That's right. Alicia thought of something, and walked up the top-rank ladder in small steps. Everyone, the city-state of Arclia has died out, and Princess Elisa has disappeared from then on. Now we are all citizens of Noxus. You can call me Elisa. I am not a princess. Elisa stood on the high platform and shouted, announcing the demise of Aclia and the cancellation of her princess status. She was afraid that everyone would hesitate to call herself a princess, which would cause Shilin's dissatisfaction and kill On's father. And she would like to remind everyone that now you belong to Noxus. We understand the princess, we all belong to the great Noxus. The crowd shouted in unison on the ground. When the surrounding monsters heard the human yelling, they all raised their heads. Peeps, would you like to be friends with humans? Ramos asked, sitting on the rock. I don't care, besides, this is Your Majesty's order. I will try to make friends with them. If it doesn't work, I won't force it. Peeps shrugged, he didn't really care about it. As long as you don't cause any harm to human beings, you will be fine even if you don't be friends. It's you, are you Toothy tribe willing? Peeps touched Ramos. Boys don't seem to want to deal with humans, but I am a little interested in that girl named Cloth. Ramos pointed to Cross, which is the human being that your majesty is concerned about. Oneself should have to fight the relationship. But Ramos is not going to tell Peeps about these things. Peeps glanced at Ramos a little strangely. Why did Ramos want to focus on this Chloe? Is there any difference in this cloth? Peeps can't figure it out a bit. Ramos saw Peeps's eyes full of doubt and smiled, and said nothing. As a friend, I have reminded you once. Whether you can understand it depends on your own mind. Is there anything special about this Chloe? Peeps asked, scratching his head. He feels that his mind hurts when he thinks about these things. What's the difference? You will know later. Ramos said no more, and stood up and said, I should go to rectify the Fangfang tribe, goodbye. After speaking, Ramos left. Peeps was confused and confused. Really, when did you talk like a human being? Peeps turned away angrily. So he said he hated humans the most. Now when humans came to Noxus, the characters of the monsters began to change. As time goes by, the sun gradually sets to the west, and the full moon on the other side is about to rise. At this time, the temperature suddenly dropped. The cold wind blew through everybody. Hi, I didn't expect it to be so cold, completely different from the high temperature during the day. A carpenter quickly picked up the clothes on the ground. I felt body heat when I was carrying wood in the morning, and I took off my clothes, but now the temperature has changed again by 180 degrees. Yeah, the house is only half built now, it looks like it's squeezed. The other youth was a little weak. Men can huddle together, but women will suffer a little bit. After all, we are not relatives, and there are some married women, and their rash physical contact is not very good. The most important thing is the elderly and children. The old man has loose bones. If he accidentally squeezed hard, what should he do to collect the bones? The same is true for children, and accidents are easy. Cross, at the current rate, it can't be done at all. There was a trace of anxiety on Elise's face. In the afternoon, women who could free up also joined the ranks of building wooden houses. As a result, it still could not be completed. Well, if you want to build so many houses, it will take at least 2 or 3 days. We all work together to complete it, but 1 day is too short. Close next to him is also helpless. No matter how smart it is, in the face of absolute power, any conspiracy will turn into nothingness. If you have the power of His Majesty Shilin, let alone build a house in 1 day. It only takes less than half a minute to use magic to build a house. Wait, Your Majesty Shilin. Klaus suddenly thought of Shilin. They are now citizens of Noxus. As the king of Noxus, Shilin has no reason to let so many people die. At least it is impossible to let a large number of humans die overnight. Alyssa big sis, wait a minute, I will go to the palace to find Your Majesty. Klaus hurriedly turned and ran towards the palace. Wait, Cross. Alyssa tried to stop Klaus but couldn't stop her. She had no choice but to clench her teeth to keep up. She was afraid that Klaus's words would accidentally touch Shilin. Little did she know that Klaus was smarter than she thought. Stop. This is Your Majesty's Dragon Palace. No one can enter without being summoned by Your Majesty. A desert werewolf stood in front of Klaus and blocked her way. This palace is called the Dragon Palace, which means the Palace of the Dragon. No one can enter here without Shilin's permission, including the leaders of the 4 major tribes. At the gate of the Dragon Palace, there were 4 monsters standing. They are Desert Werewolf, Armored Dragon Turtle, Dune Raider, and Sandstalker. Each one is an elite among the elites in the tribe. The strength is lower than the leader. Please, I have something to see Your Majesty. Cross is very anxious, if he can't see Your Majesty. The crowd at night must be cold to death. She hoped that through this shout, Shilin in the Dragon Palace could hear it. Something. If something really happens, Your Majesty will call you. Now you can go back to humans. Don't think that Your Majesty will take you in. You can ignore the rules of Noxus. The armored dragon turtle stepped forward, and the huge body scared Chloe back a step. If you dare to break the rules, I will eat you so much that there is no scum left. The Dune Raiders even more disdain for Chloe, a human being. The attackers are a race with a relatively bad attitude towards humans. They just don't like humans and only like to eat. Of the 4 major goalkeepers, only the Shazong man did not speak, silently guarding this door. But, when Klaus wanted to say something, Alicia's voice came from behind. Sorry, Sir, Klaus is still young and naive, we will leave now. Alyssa bent over and bowed with a sense of grace, and wanted to pull Chloe away. Cross broke free and opened Alyssa's arms. Alyssa, big sis, if you don't see your majesty tonight, at least half of the crowd will die. That's right, we're hungry, don't mind picking up some dead bodies to fill up our stomachs. The assailant grinned open his curved jaw. I'm really sorry. Alicia nodded hurriedly, then dragged Chloe to a low voice. Cross, leave, the monsters won't make sense to you. Don't love Lisa, big sis, you don't understand at all, it's actually your majesty. Klaus hasn't finished speaking yet. Let them in. The majestic sound from inside the dragon palace came and passed into the ears of the gatekeeper monster. The Shazong man decisively retracted the spike and gave way. The attacker was slightly stunned when he heard it, and was pulled aside by the desert werewolf next to him before reacting. The armored dragon turtle quickly avoided, revealing the stairs that went up. Alyssa, big sis, let's go up quickly. Cross was extremely excited, and pulled Alicia and ran up. Elisa's head buzzed a little, and your majesty really wanted to see them. This is incredible. While Elisa was still in a daze, she had been entered into the palace by closing ribbon. 98, 99, 100. Your majesty, you were really great. Before they fully stepped in, Klaus and the others heard Klaus's shameful words. Why don't we go in first? As an adult, Elisa also knows this. Although I have never experienced it, at least I understand it. Why, Alyssa, big sis, if your majesty waits anxiously, we will be sugary. Where did Cross understand these things? She pulled Alicia and walked in. As a result, as soon as the two entered, they saw Shilin doing sit-ups. Are you here? Shilin stopped the sit-ups and used the tie-dye sand on his body. He just completed the task given by the system. Congratulations to the host for signing in and punching in push-ups, get bonus attack plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in and punching in sit-ups, get bonus physique plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in and squatting, gaining speed plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in, clocking in and running, gaining physique plus 50. It's boring, there isn't a crit bonus. Shilin complained slightly, but didn't even have a crit. However, this situation is quite common, and a bad luck crit may even be a debris. Crit rewards are not necessarily good things. It means that you can get other things besides adding data. Alyssa, big sis. Klaus, little sister. Why are you here? Olena called out big sis and little sister very familiarly. We are coming to see your majesty for something. Klaus laughed. It looks like this Olena is very good communication. Alicia smiled and nodded. Something. Olena tilted her head, and the two of them asked, your majesty, what's the matter? They only came to Noxus one day. They are here for that group of people. Shilin's strong hearing had already heard all this, and he got up and lay on his own dragon chair. Your majesty, if you don't save the group of people, you can let the cold wind take the lives of most people in one night. They can't resist the cold at all. Cross knelt down first, hoping to win Shilin's compassion. Are you vainly trying to have a compassionate red dragon, the head of the five-color dragon? Shilin laughed. In the entire Western fantasy continent, no one knew that the red dragon was the most evil and chaotic creature. They are arrogant, and they never pity the weak. If other red dragons encounter this matter, they will definitely use a solution to solve it. Since you are about to die, you might as well fill the stomach of the red dragon before you die. It's a pity that Shilin couldn't do it, because there was a strongest deity named River Crab watching him. Cross didn't know what to say for a while. Yes, why would he pray for mercy from your majesty? However, the previous majesty did not look like this. In Klaus's view, your majesty is a bit like a human being in a red dragon skin, and communicates much better than other red dragons. Also willing to take in humans to join his red dragon empire. Well, Alicia, why are you here? Could it be that I also came to intercede with those people? Or are you afraid of dying? Don't worry, I will allow you 2 nights to come to my palace for the night. If you are really here to intercede, I can help them through the night, but you should be able to think of another result. Shilin set his eyes on Elisa to see what her opinion was. For Elisa, her goal is also to intercede for the crowd, but Klaus has been rejected. If he still begged Shilin stubbornly, he might irritate Shilin and kill her father. Elisa really doesn't know what to say, and now she is caught in the diva battle. On the one hand is the people who may freeze to death, and on the other is his precarious father. Elisa big sis. Klaus didn't know what Eliza was hesitating. She didn't know that Akalia, Elisa's father, was in Shilin's hands. In her opinion, only one plea from Alicia is needed now. Your Majesty can save 30,000 lives. Elisa big sis, hurry down on your knees and pray for your Majesty. Klaus winked madly at Elisa, hoping that Elisa could understand. The reason why Shilin raised this question was because of the playfulness of Hong Long's heart. He wanted to see whether in Elisa's heart, was the masses important, or his own father was important. No matter what result Eliza chooses, he will save 30,000 people. After all, I tried my best to bring this group back, but I didn't let them freeze to death overnight. On Noxus needs this group of labor to build the entire empire. If there are still good seedlings, they can be cultivated to become fighters. Olena next to her knew the meaning of Shilin's words. But as someone from Noxus, she didn't say much. Although good money, she likes Elisa big sis very much, but also very pitiful Elisa. But everything is based on Shilin. If Elisa dares to provoke Shilin and she does not need Shilin to speak, she will take out her own frost staff and turn Elisa into an ice sculpture. It can be said that now Olena's heart has been quietly transformed by Shilin. I don't know what will happen after Olena becomes a god. After all, the incarnation of the gods will be 100% gods. Elisa, I don't have much patience. Olena, 3 seconds to the count. Shilin breathed out. Alicia was shocked, but Cross realized something. It was not that simple. I understand, Your Majesty. Olena immediately stood up and counted down. I beg you to let those people live. After Elisa said this, she collapsed on the ground feebly. Between her father and the masses, she chose the masses. She didn't want so many people to die selfishly because of her own, and her father had taught her since she was a child. As a high-ranking person, you must always consider for the lower-ranking person. Only in this way, you are a qualified king. Even though the city-state of Akiria is no longer there, the group of people are still civilians of Akiria before. Why did you choose them? Shilin felt a little surprised. He thought Elisa would choose her father. After all, she was the one who would dedicate her soul to the dragon for the sake of her father. Your Majesty, I have at least been their princess. Eliza closed her eyes in despair. Father, you must think so too, right? Interesting. Shilin smiled lightly, and then walked out of the dragon palace. As soon as Shilin left, Chloe hurriedly stepped forward and hugged Elisa. Alicia big sis, what happened? Nothing happened, thank your merciful Majesty. Elisa chose not to talk, and she had no complaints against Shilin. A red dragon can give her this choice, which is already the greatest benevolent dragon in the world. There has never been such a condition given by a red dragon. Olena turned her head and glanced at Elisa, and saw Shilin leave, so she hurried to catch up. There was nothing she could do about it, nor could she say anything to comfort Elisa. Outside, when Shilin's body walked outside the dragon palace, all the monsters shouted at the same time. Long live Death Wings. Death Wings, a nickname for Shilin. It means, the king of the death desert. After hearing the cry of the monster, the humans reacted one by one, hurriedly knelt on the ground, and shouted Death Wings together. Although I don't know what Noxus rules are, there is always nothing wrong with doing it together. Shilin nodded symbolically, and the other monsters continued to do what they were doing. Looking down below, Shilin found that the current Noxus had been built by humans, and the cabins were built. From the outside, Noxus has a lot of vitality. Sure enough, bringing humans to join Noxus is a relatively correct thing. The monsters don't know how to build an empire. For them, digging a hole is home. The larger the empire's territory, the more magnificent the empire. The whisper of the earth, the cry of the forest. Shilin muttered dragon language magic silently. This is the longest spell he has read so far. Boom. When he finished chanting this dragon language magic, the whole earth dragon began to turn over. The humans suddenly fell to the ground and hugged together in fear. They didn't even know what was going on now, why Shilin did it all of a sudden. Do you want to have a big meal? Green dots fell from the sky and landed on the ground. Small bean sprouts emerged on the dry sand, and then grew upward at a speed visible to the naked eye, and turned into thick trees. The branches are constantly intertwined to form a small wooden house. At this moment, the sand flies away from the rocks, attaches to the surface of the wooden house, and strengthens the stability of the wooden house. The small wooden houses built by human beings have been slightly strengthened by trees. When the earth-shaking sound disappeared, residential houses appeared in front of the crowd. This is simply a miracle. Everyone, this is the residence that Your Majesty rewarded us, and we must thank Your Majesty. Cross ran out at this time and hurriedly reminded everyone below. Thank Your Majesty for the reward. These people are not fools either, they reacted quickly, kneeling down and thanking Shilin for his reward. His Majesty. At this moment Olena finally chased up, panting and bending over. Your Majesty's legs are too long, and one step is more than 100 steps higher than one's own. Why are you chasing here? Shilin turned around silently and said. Coming out by myself was just to help this group of people stay overnight, not to fight or something. Ah, I want to chase Your Majesty's footsteps at any time. Olena poses as a regular army, looking very serious. Just because of her appearance, she seems more cute and funny. Come on, you are not a dragon's messenger. Shilin rolled his eyes. The dragon messenger is indeed a name, and it is the position closest to the dragon. Wherever the dragon's messenger is, there is a dragon. The two are inseparable. The order of the dragon messenger is the order of the dragon. And when the dragon is sleeping, the angel of the dragon represents the words and deeds of the dragon. The dragon messenger does not have to be the strongest, but must be the closest to the dragon. But people want to follow Your Majesty all the time. Olena didn't want to be a dragon's messenger, she just wanted to follow Shilin all the time. When Shilin promised her to go back to the village and gave her the frost staff, she completely changed Shilin. It's up to you, let's go back to the dragon palace. Wait a minute, you said to Alicia, I just asked casually, a quiz, don't take it seriously. Chapter 101. Advertisement. Shilin could still hear Elisa beside Chloe crying. As a dragon, it is difficult to speak personally, so I handed this task of retelling to Olena. But in other words, do you want to use Olena as the messenger of the dragon? This little girl is indeed okay. It's just that the strength is too good. He always feels to find a dragon's messenger who has both strength and beauty. Well, it must be human female, it looks more seductive. Strength can also be thrown away, with enough beautiful appearance just fine. From this look, Olena seems to be really okay. No, there is only one dragon's messenger, so he still has to be a good bargain. Anyway, who has stipulated that there is only one dragon's messenger? Shilin thought of this as if he had opened up the two veins of Ren Tong. There is only one dragon's messenger, which is something that everyone in the Western fantasy continent knows. But why does Shilin want one? He wants as many as he himself wants. Thinking about it, Shilin walked into the dragon palace. Your Majesty is really a Tsunere. Olena stared at Shilin's tall and mighty figure, chuckled and shook her head. What are you talking about? Chloe blinked incredulously. Advertisement. Arena seemed to be talking about Your Majesty Tsunere. The word Tsunere is not very good for dragons. Besides, Long's hearing is so sensitive, are you sure that this sentence will not be heard by Your Majesty? In fact, Shilin did hear it, and he decided to severely cross Olena from the list of dragon messengers. Alyssa big sis, don't be sad. Your Majesty said that what he just told you was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Your father will not die. Olena came to Alicia's ear and smiled. What did you just say? Eliza couldn't believe it. Owen raised her head and showed her eyes that were already crying red. It looks so pitiful, but I still feel pitiful. I said, Your Majesty just made a joke with you just now, you don't need to cry, Alicia big sis. Arena was afraid that Elisa would not be able to hear her, so she was a little louder this time. After hearing it clearly, Elisa showed a confused look in her eyes. This joke was really special. Is it a joke of the dragon? Could it be? Cross had to glance back and forth between Elisa and Olena, she could probably guess how things were going. Unexpectedly, Elisa was willing to sacrifice her father in order to save the group of people. Anyway, she was pretty sure she couldn't do it. No wonder Alicia will become a princess, it is not without reason. If the city-state of Achalia did not fall in civil war, Alyssa might become the best queen. The Western fantasy continent doesn't have much opinion on the queen. Advertisement. As long as the country can be governed well, both men and women will be loved by civilians. Thank you for your report and tell your majesty that I am willing to follow him without regrets in this life. This time Alyssa is willing to follow Shilin from the heart. She was convinced by Shilin. This red dragon is worthy of being followed by the entire Western fantasy continent. Hee, Alyssa big sis, if you really want to follow your majesty, you should help your majesty manage this group of people. Olenna still doesn't know that these people are now under the management of Chloe. Now Klaus seemed extremely non-existent. Ah, Olenna, it's Chloe who is in charge of this group now. Alyssa glanced at Klaus a little embarrassedly. Klaus shook her head and said it was all right. If there was no Eliza, this group of people would still be half frozen to death. No matter who it is, you must manage this group of people well anyway. I will tell you something quietly. Your majesty is very important to this group of people. Olenna looked left and right, pulled the two women down beside her, whispering. Unexpectedly, your majesty looks at humans this way, I must redouble my efforts. Alyssa was the first to express her attitude, her eyes showing firm eyes. Me too. Cross was not as crazy as this group of people, she just wanted to live. Advertisement. Like most ordinary people. Then do you want to go to the Dragon Palace to sleep? Olenna asked curiously. After all, Shilin agreed to the two women staying overnight. No, we just need to live outside. Alyssa shook her head and rejected Olenna. I am Olenna too. We can live outside. Living in the Dragon Palace feels a bit uncomfortable. Cross didn't dare to spend the night with Shilin. Sleeping next to the dragon gave her 10 darings to do that. Well, good night. Olenna didn't say any more, and hurried to catch up with her. When passing by the 4 goalkeepers, the monsters didn't stop her at all. After all, she is the default dragon messenger. The other side. What is the difference between this group of humans? Peeps touched his chin, hiding on a rock and watching the crowd. After observing it for a long time, it feels nothing special. Because Shilin used magic to renovate, now the red blood has also been cleaned up. The desert werewolf was a lot more relaxed, helping humans carry their luggage. The task of setting up humans was originally given to them by Shilin at the beginning. Advertisement. Soon, the time came tonight. With the help of the desert werewolves, the humans moved their luggage into their homes at once. Thanks, thank you. A woman holding her child with a look of vino in her eyes, raised her head to help own the desert werewolf. Cut. No thanks, this is your majesty's order, besides, it's a trivial matter. The desert werewolf turned his head, his legs were slightly bent, and then he leapt hard, jumped out of the woman's house, and landed on the ground. The woman stared at the desert werewolf in a daze. It seemed that these monsters were not bad. This situation still occurs in many homes. Human beings understand etiquette very well, regardless of whether monsters have this habit. As long as they help them, they will say thank you. Chief, are these humans so polite? A desert werewolf came to Mutu and smiled. No effort is needed to carry something light and light. This is the rule between humans. Although it is very cumbersome, but your majesty seems to like it very much. Mu Tujing glanced at the human being, turned his head and said to his opponent. Speaking of the chief, why are you so friendly to that little human girl? The desert werewolf pointed at Klaus behind him with some doubts. Advertisement. From now on, let the wolf cubs not to have with Klaus, she is a human being admired by your majesty. Mutu almost forgot to tell the matter and order to go on. If a wolf cub who doesn't have long eyes provokes Klaus, it won't be good to have any conflicts. But there is no need to blindly please, the werewolves also have their own dignity. They will only please your majesty the red dragon. The person your majesty values. I understand. The desert werewolf hurriedly communicated the matter. Dragon Palace. Your majesty, I have already explained the situation to Alicia Big Sis. Olenna came to Shilin and cleaned Shilin's scales on her body. But the effect is minimal. How did she react? Shilin asked. Alicia replied. She said that she was very grateful to you, and that she would follow you without regrets in this life. Really? Shilin was expressionless after hearing it. There was no ripple in the calm expression. An ordinary person's following, he didn't feel much. I only took in Elisa because of the enhanced buff. Oh, Olenna let out a sigh of fatigue. Sleepy. Then go to sleep. Shilin looked down at Olenna, and when she grew up to the young dragon stage, Olenna would look even smaller. Advertisement. Good Majesty. Olenna did not try her best, Owen was indeed very sleepy. Shilin got up and lay in his own lair, opening his mouth. The smashed gold coins were spit out and piled up a high hill of gold coins. A lot of gold coins and gems. Olenna's whole body was shining with gold coins. Is it too much? Compared to my mother, it's worthless. Shilin thought of Daniel's treasure, which was the real dragon's treasure. I don't have more quantity than Daenerys, and the quality is not as good as Daenerys. Daniel's treasures are plundered from the top empire treasures, and the level of gold coin casting is not knowing how much higher than the Acrian city-state. It can be said that 1 gold coin of the empire can be worth 100 gold coins of Acria. Your mother must be a great dragon, otherwise you cannot be born. Olenna praised. I have to say that after getting along with the monster for a long time, Olenna has also learned a few words of praise. No, I am the adopted son of my mother. As for my biological parents, I don't know where they are. Maybe it's still out there, Xiao, or has died in some wilderness. Shilin shrugged. He had no feelings for his biological parents. After all, he was originally a human, so he grew up relying on Danier to grow up. There is no appearance or name of the parents in the memory of the dragons. But if Shilin really met his biological parents, the strong blood relationship could make him recognize at a glance. Advertisement. Sorry, Your Majesty. Olenna suddenly covered her mouth. Is this too much of her mouth? It's okay, I don't care. Shilin finally vomited the treasure, and there was a big box made of gold in it. Your Majesty, what is this? Olenna widened her eyes curiously. Is the city-state of Aquileia so rich? Even the boxes are made of gold. No, this is the treasure of the god of death. It has been hidden in the second stomach before and has forgotten to take it out. Shilin stretched out his claws and knocked on his head. There were too many things to work on recently. Reaper's treasure, Olenna exclaimed, and thought of the mixture. It was creepy and disgusting. If it were not for Your Majesty's strength, they might have died in the desert palace. Well, I just have time now, I can finally open it to see what's there. Shilin protruded his right paw and placed it on the golden box. Taste. The golden box seemed to have turned on a certain switch, accompanied by a crunch. A black body exuding black air appeared in front of Shilin's eyes. Your Majesty, is this? Just as Olenna was wondering. The black thing suddenly opened a pair of scarlet eyes. Advertisement. Roar. The black creature let out a cautious roar, and then rushed out suddenly and attacked Olenna. Your Majesty. Olenna cried out in fear. The frost staff had just been taken out, and there was no time to release the magic. The monster is close at hand. Just when Olenna's life was about to be threatened, Shilin's huge hand covering the sky came over. Boom. There was a shaking sound in the entire dragon palace, as if it was about to collapse, and many small stones fell. His Majesty. The 4 goalkeepers at the door just wanted to rush in to see the situation. You don't need to come in. Shilin's voice came from the dragon palace. For a moment, the 4 goalkeepers stopped and stayed at the door obediently. Dragon Palace. Your Majesty, what is this? Olenna swallowed, and stared at the dark monster in Shilin's hand. This monster is very similar to the previous hybrid, but there are some differences between the two. Naturally, Shilin couldn't answer Olenna's question. There was no such thing in the dragon clan's memory. He had to check the system. Name. None. Creature. Reaper's pet chaotic evil. Advertisement. Attack. 1300 ordinary young red dragon 300. Defense. 1000 ordinary juvenile red dragon 200. Speed. 3000 ordinary juvenile red dragon 150. Physique. None ordinary juvenile red dragon 350. Item. None. Magic. None. Talent. Nearly immortal demigod. Ability. Devour. Evaluation. According to legend, a monster created by the god of death using undead magic is kept by his side at all times. It can swallow the soul of creatures and grow up, and is very loyal. It turned out to be a pet. The corner of Shilin's mouth twitched, and this thing was of little use to him. He doesn't need a pet that devours the soul, and no matter how loyal he is, it is also something created by the god of death. At the critical moment, it may bite you back. What was expected to be full, turned out to be such a small thing. Shilin thought it was some kind of artifact, and in the end he didn't need it at all. The only thing I want is the talent of pets, devouring. Can swallow the soul ascension own ability. If you have it, after every war, the enemy's soul can be killed and swallowed by yourself. What pet, Your Majesty? Advertisement. Olenna was confused. She thought this thing was weird, so it's better to throw it away as soon as possible. Seeing myself infiltrated, it was like my soul was staring at it all the time. I can't explain it to you, it's a useless thing anyway. With just one hand, Shilin grabbed the death pet and made it completely immobile. Let's throw away the useless things, Your Majesty. Olenna suggested cautiously. Throw it away. No, you can't throw it away. Shilin couldn't throw this little thing away, he couldn't kill it currently. If it sneaked back in the middle of the night and swallowed the souls of the Noxus monsters, it wouldn't be a big loss. No matter what, this kind of creature is wise. It doesn't know lingua franca but only own language. Even the dragons who understand almost all languages do not know their language. Because it was created by the god of death. The number of appearances is rare, and there is no record of this kind of creature in the memory of the dragon. They are very grudges, and if they throw them away now, it is very likely to cause catastrophe. When this little thing relies on the ability to swallow, what to do if it develops extremely quickly and seeks revenge on itself? Then what shall we do, Your Majesty? Olenna was a little puzzled, and Your Majesty seemed to hate this creature very much. Since it is annoying, why not kill it or throw it away? Doctor. Advertisement. While Shilin was thinking about how to deal with the little things, he noticed the golden treasure box with the little things closed. Yes, Shilin had a good idea. He pinched the pet, then stuffed it into the golden treasure chest, and then covered it. Click. The golden treasure box contained this little headache. To kill this thing, you must have at least the strength of a demigod. Obviously, the current self can't do it at all. Unless you use Zeus's lightning, but this is too wasteful. Just for this thing, it will not be necessary to hand over life-saving things. However, the thought of putting the golden treasure chest in my stomach all the time made me feel nauseous for a while. If I knew it was this stuff, I wouldn't swallow him. He wouldn't even enter the void land. It would not be better to go back the same way. Your Majesty, what if it breaks free? Olenna saw the golden treasure chest gradually moved, but its power was not enough to open the treasure chest from the inside. Don't worry, the golden treasure chest has been closed for so long, how can it be broken away? As long as you don't swallow the soul for this thing, its strength will not increase at all, and it will even weaken its strength over time. Forgot to release it regularly. Advertisement. Olenna looked a little scared at the moving treasure chest. What if she rushed out in the middle of the night? Your Majesty is certainly not afraid of this kind of physical body, but his own mortal body will be killed if he is not careful. Your Majesty, or I will be a soldier. Olenna always felt that the mage's body was too weak, and she was most afraid of the sudden attack, and there was no time to release the magic. Warrior. Forget it, all the monsters in Noxus are top-notch warriors. They just lack the archers and mages that can damage you from a distance. How could Shilin agree to Olenna becoming a warrior? Isn't such a good magic talent a waste of blindness? Hee, I'm just kidding. Olenna scratched the back of her head embarrassedly. She just said casually, just making a small joke. A joke? You dare to joke with the dragon? Shilin looked down at Olenna pretending to be angry. For a moment, Olenna suddenly felt that the sky was about to be on the scene, and her legs trembled and her legs fell soft. The Shilin volcano is about to take her life. It's over. Your Majesty is angry. He really is talkative. I thought I had gotten closer to Your Majesty, but I didn't expect it to be because of myself. Advertisement. Just when Olenna closed her eyes and waited to die. Ha ha ha, see what scared you, just kidding. Shilin laughed, and then lay on the pile of gold coins behind him, looking at the frustrated Olenna with a smile on her face. Joke. Olenna got cold all over, and then lay weakly on the ground. She swears that she will never make jokes with His Majesty in the future. Others are laughing and joking, and I seem to have seen death in your jokes. It's getting late, It's time to go to bed. Shilin closed the pair of red dragon pupils, and the light on the dragon scales on his body also became bright and dark. After recovering, Olena slowly got up and came to Shilin next to Shilin, lying under the dragon scales on Shilin's abdomen. The warm breath enveloped her body. Although the Death Desert is very cold at night, Your Majesty's body is very warm. Outside, cross miss, everyone is settled. A young man came to Chloe's side and smiled. It really deserves to be a giant dragon. A random magic can solve the things they can't finish in a day. Well, everyone has warm clothes and quilts. Chloe asked. Advertisement. If there is no quilt and clothing, a room will catch a cold. Especially some newborn babies are easily killed by a fever. Yes, those desert wanderers helped us bring things to Noxus, and every household got some. The young man nodded and told Klaus what the Desert Ronin had done. Now in the crowd, the monster like the Desert Ronin has been greatly changed, and it feels like the Desert Ronin is not very bad. At least the Desert Ronin is much easier to get along with than other monsters. Some of the more courageous, when they see the Desert Ronin scream, the Desert Ronin will look back and nod. Other monsters don't, especially the assailants. If someone calls them, they will immediately say, "They are noisy to humans and don't want to become my feces after meals, just shut up." The armored dragon turtle is better, but just ignores it. This is especially true for the Shazong people. Except for the words of their companions, they almost ignore other monsters. Well, I see, then say a good night to everyone. Chloe was very tired after a busy day, and now she just wants to fall asleep on the bed. Okay, good night, miss. The young man smiled and waved, turned and left. Cross, why didn't I find you in the city-state of Akiria before? Seeing that Cross manages all this in an orderly manner, Alyssa immediately understood that Cross is a talent. Advertisement. I didn't find this rare talent at the time. Alyssa big sis, you can be a high-ranking princess, I am just a low-level commoner, unless I do something earth-shattering, otherwise how can you notice me? Klaus didn't mean to mock Alyssa, she was just stating a fact. It is almost impossible for the people at the bottom to see the top. Don't even think of high-level attention to them. Unless they do something big, or even if life is under the eyes of the nobles will not find them. Sorry Klaus, we Dino Zhao did not do well. Alyssa understands what Cross meant, that the roots of a country are civilians. This is something that the entire Western fantasy empire knows. But civilians have been ignored. It's okay Alyssa big sis, Akalia is very big, you can't pay attention to an unknown person. Klaus chuckled lightly. Let's go, let's sleep. Klaus didn't want to discuss this issue anymore, she was like sleeping. Good. Alicia took Klaus's arm and led her into the house. The number of houses is limited. Although Shilin's magic is very powerful, it is impossible for him to use up his magic to build houses for 30,000 people. Advertisement. Shilin can do it, but he doesn't think it is necessary. How can a group that has just joined Noxus enjoy such a reward from Shilin? If the Death Desert was also very hot at night, Shilin would not care about this group of people. After all, it's one thing whether this group of people is useful in the end. The two women are sleeping in the same room now, and Chloe has a habit of sleeping. When he was a civilian in Akria, he often slept with big sis little sister. But Alicia is a princess, and Chloe is worried that she is not used to sleeping. Alyssa big sis, how about I sleep next to it? Klaus was afraid of accidentally squeezing Alyssa. Shilin only built the house, but he didn't bother to get the facilities inside. Now their beds are piled up with thick quilts, similar to floor coverings. No need for Chloe, my sleeping habit. Alyssa naturally guessed Klaus's thoughts. Although she is a princess, she is not so golden. But I do not get used to sleeping very much. This is the first time she slept, not on the big bed in her room. Advertisement. Alyssa big sis, do you think what will happen to us in Noxus? Klaus was still a little afraid of Noxus. If this is a human empire, she is not terrible, but this is the empire of the Red Dragon after all. There are monsters all around. Even though it was night, she could still hear the sound of the attackers digging the soil outside, and the wolf howling of the Desert Ronin. Believe your majesty Klaus, he is different from other red dragons. Alyssa clenched Chloe's right hand, feeling a little cold. Klaus flushed suddenly, turned slightly and leaned on Alicia, closing her eyes to sleep. Quote. Alicia didn't even think of Chloe so suddenly. This was the first time someone was lying in her arms. It's just a girl. The two spent the night in silence. Morning. Your Majesty, CHBB Ionian Forest sent goblins here to spread a letter, saying that they should not approach the forest in the future, otherwise they will definitely attack Noxus. Early in the morning, Ramos came to Shilin and reported the news about the Ionian Forest in the morning. Why? Does he think he is strong? Continue to send spies to check. Of course Shilin was not to be outdone. He always felt that there was a problem with the dragon inside. But the dragon over there said that if he finds that the monster who is trading is from Noxus, he will immediately attack. Advertisement. Ramos was worried that His Majesty would not be able to beat the one in the Ionian Forest. This is not to feel that His Majesty is weak, but that the dragon in the Ionian Forest may be an ancient dragon. Ji Yulong is a powerhouse at the level of His Majesty's mother. Your Majesty is still so young now, they definitely can't fight Ji Yulong. Are you scared, Ramos? Shilin looked at Ramos sharply. Ramos immediately knelt on the ground in horror. No, Your Majesty. I just think it's too dangerous to do so. Noxus has only been established for less than a year now. In terms of strength, it is indeed not as strong as an Ionia that has existed for about 100 years. Ramos was ready to die when he said this. What Honglong hates most is to belittle his own words. But I must do this. For Your Majesty. For Noxus. He is willing to use his own life to persuade Shilin. Ionia, Noxus is not afraid of any war. Ramos, I tell you. Even if Noxus is not as good as the enemy, we will never be afraid. In the face of any enemy, we dare to fight to the death. Even if we are going to fight the gods in the sky, Noxus will never be afraid. Shilin knew what Ramos was thinking, and he knew Ramos was loyal. Advertisement. Otherwise, he would not risk his life to persuade himself. But he hates Ramos' cowardice. Why he named Noxus? Because they are not afraid of any enemies. Yes, I understand, Your Majesty. I am willing to be dead to prove that I am not a tortoise. With that, Ramos was about to pull out a spike on his back to commit suicide. I didn't tell you to commit suicide. Without my order, you didn't even have the right to deprive yourself of your life, understand? Ramos. Shilin was quite domineering in this matter, holding the souls of the Noxus monsters in his own hands. In theory, even if a monster wants to commit suicide, Shilin has to nod his head in agreement. Yes, Ramos knelt on the ground and confessed his mistake. I'm still too impulsive. My life belongs to Your Majesty. I punish you to help the humans. Don't you have any opinions? Shilin wanted Ramos to blend with humans. As long as Ramos, the armored dragon turtle leader, can befriend humans, other dragon turtles will naturally change their attitudes. Understood, Your Majesty. Ramos quickly got up and turned and walked out of the dragon palace. He did not complain. Olena, who was next to her, wanted to intercede with Ramos, but she was afraid that she would talk too much and cause trouble. Ionia, isn't it an ancient dragon that was born thousands of years earlier than me? I want to see what kind of dragon you are. Advertisement. Shilin was going to send spies to investigate Ionia. Only this time, he needs a long-term undercover. The undercover agent had to join Ionia, climb step by step, and finally go to the giant dragon, and then pass the news to himself. And this monster can't be the monster of the 4 major tribes of Noxus. After all, Ionia has seen it. But apart from the 4 major tribes, other monsters are not strong enough. If you go to Ionia, you will show your feet if you are not careful. Who should I choose? Shilin's curved hook kept hitting the ground, lifting up a layer of sand. Olena hurriedly used barrier magic to resist. After thinking about it, Shilin didn't have a suitable goal. At least the monsters in the Death Desert are definitely not there are. Sudden, Shilin's mind flashed, and he thought of that small human town. I can let this group of people bring a suitable monster for myself. After all, the people in the town are almost all caravans that trade back and forth, and a large part of the merchandise of the caravans are rare monsters. Advertisement. Mutu. Shilin shouted Mutu's name. Mutu, who was talking with Klaus outside, immediately fell on all fours and ran towards the Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace. Your Majesty, your most loyal wild dog is here. Mutu came to Shilin's feet out of breath and knelt on the ground. I'll give you a task. Go to the town of Vals, find the mayor in the town, and tell him that I need a rare and powerful monster. Shilin was afraid that Mutu could not find it, so he pulled out a piece of dragon scale. This dragon scale would guide Mutu how to get to the town of Vals. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, Mutu will definitely handle it for you. Mutu grasped the scales of the dragon and raised the tail of the wolf, and ran out without stopping, casually leading a few younger brothers towards the small town of Walls. Arena will keep me count. Shilin shouted. Yes, Your Majesty, Olena said. 3 minutes later. Congratulations to the host for signing in and punching in push-ups, get bonus attack plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in and punching in sit-ups, get bonus physique plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in and squatting, gaining speed plus 50. Congratulations to the host for signing in, punching in and running, rewarding crit. Get a chance to merge ability. Critically hit. Shilin was overjoyed. This time it was finally a crit. Advertisement. System, what is fusion ability? Shilin asked inwardly. Fusion ability opportunity once, you can swallow the opponent to fuse all the opponent's abilities. Integration ability. Shilin immediately thought of the death pet opened in front of him. I was worried about how to deal with it, but I didn't expect to have a solution today. Speaking of the system, if I swallow that thing in my stomach, will I be okay? Shilin worried that he had eaten the wrong food and ended up with Danielle. I don't want to get any inexplicable curse because of a small matter. Please rest assured the host, there are no side effects from swallowing that thing. The system directly scanned the body of the death pet, and did not detect any bad curses or things harmful to Shilin's body. That's all right. Shilin slowly stood up and walked towards the golden treasure chest. Your Majesty, what's wrong with you? Olena looked a bit pity. Why Your Majesty seemed to be interested in the monster in that golden treasure box again. Shilin ignored Olena and stretched out his right paw to open the golden treasure chest again. Roar. As soon as the little thing came out, it roared at Shilin. Apparently it had been angered by Shilin's previous actions. Dare to yell at a giant dragon, who gave you the courage? Shilin immediately released all Longway of Own and pressed it on the little thing. Advertisement. The little thing immediately felt the mountain-like crushing breath from Shilin, making it unable to move at all. But it is not afraid at all, it knows that Shilin can't kill it. In its eyes, only death can kill it. But this time, Shilin did not kill it by hand, but directly opened his lava-like mouth, and swallowed the little things into his own furnace stomach. In the stomach, it never thought that the dragon in front of it swallowed itself. Looking at Shilin's molten stomach, it didn't have a trace of fear. Instead, he swam in Shilin's red stomach acid. It's better to be locked here than in a golden treasure chest. Shilin knew everything about this little thing. This is my own body, of course I know it. System, give me the talent to integrate it. Shilin immediately used the talent he had just obtained from the crit bonus. The little thing that had been swimming well in the stomach acid suddenly saw a mass of fire surrounding it. At first, it didn't take it seriously, but it turned out that own body was gradually decomposed by fire. The most frightening thing is that I don't feel any pain. What? At this time, it finally panicked, trying to get into the stomach acid, but was grabbed by the anger, and the tissues of the whole body immediately decomposed. Congratulations to the host's fusion talent, Devour. Advertisement. Host, Shilin. Creature, Red Dragon, Chaotic Evil. Attack, 5000 Ordinary Youth Dragon Red Dragon 3000. Defense, 4000 Ordinary Youth Red Dragon 2000. Speed, 3500 Ordinary Youth Red Dragon 1500. Physique, 5500 Ordinary Youth Red Dragon 3500. Items, Tiamat's Dragon Scales Demigod, Uranus's Hair Demigod, Zeus's Thunder and Lightning Demigod. Magic, 1 Ring Magic known, 2 Ring Magic known, 3 Ring Magic known. Tien, 2-3, Fu. Excellent physique, half god level, breaking potential, god level, proficient in magic, spirit level. Abilities: bite, tear, fire breath, frost breath, lightning breath, poisonous mist breath, acid breath, swallow. Evaluation: You are now far ahead of the young dragon, but you are a little tender in the eyes of the older young dragon, but the overall strength is already top-notch. I feel it, the power to devour the soul. Shilin closed his eyes and felt his extra power, swallowing it. The current self can devour the soul to strengthen own strength. It is equivalent to owning a growth skill. Of course, he will not go crazy and devour the souls of his men. Shilin is extremely happy now, and the flames on his body have become a little high. Advertisement. Olena, who was standing next to her, couldn't stand the heat, and was retreated for dozens of steps using barrier magic. Spirit world. How is it possible? How could this dragon swallow what I created? The god of death Thanatos opened his own death pupil, and there was no vitality in his eyes. Ordinary people only need to take a look. The soul is deeply attracted by the pupil of the god of death, and there is no need to do anything by Thanatos. The person who is trapped will sacrifice the soul by himself. Thanatos was a little uneasy. This was the first time that his pet was killed by a creature that was not a god. Although it was eaten to death in the end, the dragon couldn't digest its own pet. Unless another god stepped in to help this red dragon. That's right, since it is a red dragon, it must be Tiamat, the mother of the five-color dragon, who has intervened. Doesn't she know this red dragon is her own prey? Boom! An endless sea of blood erupted from Thanatos, and countless evil spirits around began to roar. In an instant, this place turned into an abyss, the underworld. At the beginning, I was surrounded by the gods and lost the palace of the death god, so I could only shrink in this endless sea of blood. Unexpectedly, more than 1,000 years have passed, and even a middle god Tiamat would dare to oppose him. This is simply looking for death. Advertisement. As the breath of Thanatos leaked, the entire endless sea of blood gradually collapsed. The ruinous momentum rushed into the sky. Roar. The surrounding souls roared and gathered together, turning into a cloud of black mist. Afterwards, it turned into an extremely black sickle, exuding an extremely cold breath, like the 18th floor of the underworld. The annoyed Thanatos decided, today he wants to slaughter the gods. Maybe the current Tiamat didn't know that the own red dragon actually annoyed a god of death completely. And this god of death has to kill himself. Mortal Western fantasy land. Shilin didn't know anything about what happened in the god realm, and now he just wanted to try this swallowing ability. Swallow, Shilin muttered silently as he watched the giant horned lizard brought by Dragon Turtle in armor. Immediately afterwards, a trace of black mist drifted from the horned lizard. The black mist wandered in midair. Shilin's mouth was like an abyss, swallowing the black mist into his stomach. Swallow the soul of the giant horned lizard, gain strength +10. It's so low. Shilin's mouth twitched. 204 ring magic. Unexpectedly, it was 10 o'clock, but because it was the soul of a horned lizard, he didn't care too much. Advertisement. The horned lizard is a kind of vegetable monster, and it doesn't even have wisdom. In the next period of time, Shilin was using the remaining horned lizards to continue to be proficient in devouring abilities. Walls Town. After a short period of time, Mutu and the others finally came to the town referred to by His Majesty. Mutu took the huge dragon scales from his back, and the dragon scales shone towards the town. That's it, let's keep a low profile. Mutu doesn't want to enter the town too high profile. What if Your Majesty's affairs are delayed? Understood. The two desert ronin behind them nodded. Immediately, the three desert ronins gradually shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the bones on their bodies also made a crackling sound. When the height reached 2 meters, the reduction of the desert ronin stopped. Not only that, all the fur on their bodies disappeared, replaced by a furry dress. The original wolf head changed into the face of a ferocious man among humans, and the tail was also retracted and hidden in the pants. Werewolves, they are called so because they can become humans. This is one of the few creatures that can turn into humans in the monsters. Go. The big man Mutu became more aware of, even if he became a human, he still walked like a humanoid titan. Advertisement. When Mutu walked into the town, he found that the town was deserted. It's not like a place for halfway transactions. There are very few people coming and going. Through the sense of smell, Mutu also discovered that there are basically no people in the house. If it weren't for 1 or 2 people passing by on the street occasionally, Mutu would have thought it was a dead town with no one. Chief, how do we find the mayor? The desert werewolf next to him leaned over and asked. They have never dealt with humans, but vaguely heard of human things in the mouths of their elders. I don't know, I haven't seen humans either, but the previous leader Jacob. Mutu's eyes looked around, and he didn't know how to find the mayor. How about the leader? Let's just grab someone and ask. The desert werewolf on the other side seemed impatient. Mewtwo frowned, just about to refuse, suddenly changed his mind. There is indeed no good way, so it is better to just do it. Thinking of this, Mewtwo nodded to his hand, and his hand understood. The subordinate stepped forward and walked straight to the old human man who was walking in front of him. What are you doing? The old man felt a little frightened when he saw the burly figure of the brawny man. This is the first time he has seen such a big person. Where is your mayor? The desert werewolf asked straightforwardly. The mayor? Why are you looking for the mayor? Advertisement. The old man asked more subconsciously, but he found that the strong man in front of him frowned. Scared and hurriedly said, the mayor is in the tallest house in front. The desert werewolf who heard the mayor's whereabouts turned and left and returned to Mewtwo. Chief, the mayor is in the tallest house ahead. The desert werewolf pointed to the front and said. Mewtwo nodded his forehead. Go, let's go find him. 3 desert werewolves walked towards the mayor's residence. During the period, Mewtwo also discovered that there were no basic guards around. Be careful, it may be a trap. Mewtwo became vigilant. The mayor, as the ruler of the entire town, could not even live in a place of guard. Even your majesty, a powerful dragon like this, will arrange several gatekeepers at the door in order to show his own status and identity. Understood, boss. The palms of the 2 desert werewolves next to them were bent into claws, and the claws hidden in them could attack at any time. Mewtwo is also the same, if it is a trap, he will kill without saying a word. When he came to the mayor's door, the desert werewolf knocked on the wooden door. Boom boom boom, boom boom boom. But after a while, there was a rush of footsteps, and then Chajir opened the door. When Chajil saw the 3 big guys at first, he almost couldn't help closing the door. How could there be such a fierce person? At first glance, he is a rapist. If it weren't for the fact that the town of Own was already so poor, Chajil would have thought that he was going to be robbed by a big man. Advertisement. We are the mayor who came to see you. Mewtwo thought of the group of people in Noxus, so he reluctantly smiled according to his own memories. Don't those people all like to laugh? But what Mewtwo didn't know was that from Chagir's point of view, the laugh of Own was even worse than crying. Chajil swallowed. What can you do with me? The mage he hired now, Moose, had already ran away, and because he had no money, he didn't even have a soldier by his side. If these 3 big guys are hostile to them, they will definitely be powerless. After all, without the identity of the mayor, he is an ordinary person. I don't know anything about magic and battle. Let's go in and talk about the mayor. Without waiting for Chajir's consent, Mewtwo forced Chajir into the room by relying on his powerful body. The men behind him also took the initiative to close the door. At this moment, Chajir's heart was half cold, and he was so poor. Why do you want to rob yourself? Now Chajil has regarded Mewtwo and the others as robbers. Entering Chajir's room, Mewtwo gave 2 men a look. The 2 desert werewolves next to them immediately understood, and turned to close the window curtain. When the light was blocked, Chajil tremblingly turned on the lamp, knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. I don't have anything of value anymore. A few months ago, a huge red dragon came to our town, and the news spread out immediately, which caused the pedestrians who passed by now to dare not enter here. The only ones left here are some lonely old people and abandoned children. Please. Don't kill me. Chajie saw that the 3 big men were still pulling up the curtains. Wasn't he still preparing to kill people? But I really don't have any money. The reason I stay here is because I can't bear the position of mayor. Now that I say that again, I am still the mayor. Advertisement. The old people and children underneath will obey their orders and still live a bit more moisturized than others. Unexpectedly, because of the vanity of Own, I have to pay the price of my life today. Kill you. Haha, you are not worthy of us to kill. The next moment when Mewtwo finished this sentence, the figures of the 3 desert werewolves gradually skyrocketed, and the fur all over their bodies was springing up like bamboo shoots after a rain. in the blink of an eye, changed back to the posture of a desert werewolf. You are actually werewolves. Chajir shivered and fell soft to the ground. He never expected that the opponent was a werewolf. Although he didn't know what werewolf was, he still heard some legends about monsters like werewolves. We are the desert werewolves, and I have something to discuss with you. Mutu liked the horrified look of Chajil very much. This is the reaction he should have when he sees a werewolf. At the same time, he also knew one thing. Your Majesty had been to this town a few months ago. After all, there is only one red dragon in the Death Desert. No wonder there are so few people in the town. If your Majesty had lived there, everything would be reasonable. Discuss one thing. Chajil supported the table beside him fearfully and stood up, looking up at the desert werewolf standing in front of him. He didn't believe in the words of werewolves a little bit. Where are monsters discussing with humans? Didn't it always meet humans and then eat one bite? You just said that a great red dragon came here a few months ago. I'm here to explain. That is our red dragon of Noxus, who asked us to come to you. Mutu bent down playfully and knotted Chajil's chest with his pointed claws. It was so scared that Chajil's heart almost jumped out. Red dragon again. Advertisement. When Chajil heard the red dragon in Mutu's mouth, it immediately appeared in his mind that Shilin's appearance was like a mountain a few months ago. Just standing there made the soldiers in the whole town dare not make any movement. The tail that looked like the Optimus pillar moved slightly, and a house more than 10 meters high was shattered. This red dragon is really terrible. I thought I would never see it again in my life. I didn't expect that after only a few months, all of Honglong's men came to the door. I regret that I shouldn't have forgotten the position of the mayor, but now I have lost my life. Chagir slumped on the sofa in despair. He felt that the dragon must have sent his hand to kill Own. Lost. You were lucky. Your Majesty doesn't want to kill you. Mutu grinned open, revealing his 2 sharp canine teeth, and then pulled over the sofa next to him and sat down. Taste. The sofa couldn't bear Mutu's weight and sank directly. Don't want to kill me. Chajir's gray eyes suddenly bloomed with brilliance, so you don't need to die. Of course, you only need a rare and powerful monster for your Majesty. We promise not to hurt you. You can still be the mayor of your own town. Mutu raised Erlang's legs. He believed that Chajil would not refuse. The most important thing is that Chajil has no choice to refuse. This is because the last time the great dragon came, the town is not as prosperous as it used to be. The human caravans in the past would rather spend the night in a tent in the dangerous desert than come to our town to rest. Chajir can do nothing about it. If it were such a prosperous town before, he would do his best to find monsters for the red dragon. But now I don't have anything, and my whole body is so bad. Advertisement. Do you mean to reject your Majesty? Mutu's eyes became bad, revealing a hint of danger. No. Chajie explained quickly. I am willing, but I can't do this at all. Mewtwo sneered. Can't do it. Can't do it, or don't want to do it. As far as the current town is concerned, I am really helpless. Chajir also wants to survive, but he knows that the cost of deceiving the dragon is even worse. If he agrees to the werewolf now, and can't get it out when the dragon comes to ask for it, the own soul will probably be used by the dragon to play with it. Mutu didn't say anything more. He also knew that it was impossible for the current town to do it. The people in the town are not as good as the newly added humans in Noxus. Just as Mutu was thinking, the dragon scales behind him suddenly began to glow. Chief, what's going on? The 2 desert werewolves were a little surprised, and Your Majesty's dragon scales actually lit up. Mutu quickly took out the dragon scales on his back. A group of flames suddenly appeared on the red dragon scales. The flames surging up on the dragon scales, slowly turning into a hideous and terrifying dragon head. His Majesty. When the 3 desert werewolves saw this dragon head, they recognized that this was the noble head of Your Majesty. Chajil, we meet again. Mirage Shilin smiled playfully at Chagir. Seeing that it was the red dragon, Chajil immediately followed Mutu and them, and fell to his knees. Hello, great dragon. What can you do with me? Didn't they tell you, Mutu? Shilin looked at Mutu. Mutu quickly explained what had happened before to Shilin. Advertisement. It turned out to be so. In that case, Chajil. Shilin said. I'm here. Chajie knelt on his knees and ran all the way to Shilin Xiang. From now on, you claim to be attached to the Dragon's Empire Noxus, and the whole town will be very safe. Noxus will protect the town from any monsters. Those who enter the town, treasures and lives will be protected by the town. Shilin understood the worries of this group of people. In that case, he had a big deal to let the whole town join Noxus. Although Chagir is a bit wasteful, the small town where you can rest in the desert still plays a huge role. You can build the town into a guest house in Noxus. Here you can rest and trade past caravans, and you can also join Noxus here. As long as you are talented and show your own value, you can join Noxus and be sheltered by the dragon. Zajir's eyes widened, and he didn't expect that the red dragon in front of him would make this decision. Turn the town into an affiliate of Noxus. What? Do you have any comments? Shilin was slightly dissatisfied. If Chajir was going to talk nonsense, he would kill him by a big deal and be the mayor of another person. Anyway, there are so many humans in Noxus, anyone is better than Chajil. The reason why Chajil has not been replaced now is because Chajil has been the mayor for a long time after all. There is still a lot of experience in how to manage small towns. No. Great, no, Your Majesty, I would like to Chajil. Chajil was smiling, but he didn't expect to be able to usher in spring at this age. Starting today, own backing as a great dragon. No one in the entire Western fantasy continent dared to mess with him, right? Advertisement. That's good, I will give you 2 months to bring me what I need, not just a monster. As long as it is a strange and powerful monster, you can give it to me. After speaking this sentence, Shilin's shadow turned into a flame and disappeared. Even the dragon scale was gone. After hearing about Daniel's incident, Shilin knew that such hidden dangers must not be left behind. So he cast dragon language magic on the dragon scales. After the mission is successful, the dragon scales will disappear by themselves. Seeing His Majesty disappeared, Mutu stood up and said, "Did you hear it, Chajil?" Understand. Don't worry, as long as it is the powerful monster that has cherished Zhao in these 2 months, I will send it to Your Majesty. Chajil was so excited at the moment, he had completely turned over. Better so, let's go. Mutu stood up and took a look at Chajil, and then walked out with the 2 desert werewolves. In order not to cause a commotion in the crowd, they still became human again. Watching the 3 werewolves leave, the corners of Chajil's mouth finally turned up. Great, starting from today, who would dare to look down upon me, Chajil? Chagir yelled to the sky in the living room. Because of the dragon incident, the magician Mo Si he recruited left and took some of his money. The soldiers also left with their families. Not only that, even On's wife took his children and stole his remaining gold coins and left the town. I thought I would spend some of my last time in solitude. But now, I turned myself over. Advertisement. As a matter of urgency, Chagir pushed the door immediately. He was going to call everyone together and make the matter public. Noxus. The mission is complete. Shilin received the news from Dragon Scale, but he didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Now I only need to wait 2 months before I can receive the monster from Chajie. Your Majesty, this is what Klaus asked me to give you. Olena used the floating magic laboriously. A plate floated in the sky, and a piece of horned lizard thigh was placed on the plate. This is the meat roasted by humans with seasoning, and it looks delicious and delicious. It's the smell. Shilin sniffed lightly and smelled a smell of grilled cumin. This is so fragrant. Sure enough, I just grilled it blindly on fire, and it didn't taste like a barbecue at all. For a while, Shilin's appetite grew. He stretched out his fiery tongue, rolled the barbecue in his mouth and tasted it carefully. As for the high temperature on the barbecue, Shilin ignored it. Even if it is a molten slurry of thousands of degrees, since he can do it like drinking warm water, without burning your mouth at all. Olena wanted to remind Your Majesty to be careful about scalding her mouth, but seeing Your Majesty eating with relish, she remembered that His Majesty is a red dragon. The barbecue burst into Shilin's mouth with a lot of gravy, which filled Shilin's taste buds. Is there any more? After Shilin Elo swallowed the barbecue, he still didn't know what to say. Advertisement. Your Majesty, that's it for such a large piece of meat. Olena put away the frost staff in embarrassment, turned and pointed at the crowd eating lunch below. Shilin only noticed that the crowd underneath was making lunch. Cross and Elisa then asked the desert werewolf for some horned lizard meat, ascending to start a bonfire on the ground. Then the meat was grilled on the flame, and some condiments were added by the way. Others used the most primitive way, boil them in a big pot, and simmer them in one pot. The monster next to it was holding the raw meat in his hand and drooling. The flavor of the condiment is much more fragrant than the bloody meat, but many monsters are not used to it. But most monsters can be used to it. Like the monsters of the tribe, they usually roast meat when they have it. It looks so fragrant. Shilin licked own lips, he was not too hungry. As a result, after eating a piece of meat, the appetite was immediately opened. Your Majesty, I'll go down right away and help you bake another one. Olena saw Shilin's intentions and was about to turn around. Shilin stopped her. No need, just organize a barbecue banquet in the evening. He knows how big his appetite is, so he can relax his stomach and have a good meal at night. Now let the group of people underneath eat enough. In other words, will they make seasonings, and if not, what to do when the seasonings are used up? Good Majesty. Advertisement. Olena hurriedly stopped, and now she is obedient to the Shilin dialect. I will never talk too much. Shilin's joke was in her memory and could not be forgotten for a long time. I don't know when Catalina will wake up. Shilin looked back at the dragon palace behind him. Now the dragon lair where the dragon used to sleep is dug under the dragon palace, and only the dragon can enter. No other monsters are allowed in, including Olena. If Shilin was asleep, Kajulina would not dare to go in. Although he can't wake up Shilin, the dragon hates the smell of other monsters around him when he wakes up. If Catalina was a deep sleep this time, she would have to sleep for at least a year. I don't know how Katrina will react when she sees so many people. Time slowly passed, and the night was soon reached. Mutu also returned to Noxus before the barbecue banquet started. Everything is done, Your Majesty. Mutu knelt on his knees and appealed about his experience of going to the small town. Well, you happen to be in a good time. Sit down. Shilin pointed the dragon's tail to the side of On. Mutu immediately sat there and looked at the monsters and humans around him with his eyes. The monsters didn't respond much, and the humans seemed more restrained. Klaus held the wooden cup in both hands and looked around, surrounded by monsters, which made her feel uncomfortable. Advertisement. Are you all right, Chloe? Alyssa noticed Chloe's expression. Klaus nodded reluctantly. Not only Cross, but also many human beings. There is a monster more than 3 meters high next to it, and no one will adapt. Shilin naturally noticed the expressions on human faces, but it didn't matter if the monsters were all over their faces. Miniature operation. When Shilin finished talking about the magic, the huge size gradually shrank at this moment, and then became a young dragon with a body length of only 5 meters. For a time, many places were vacated around Shilin, and under the sign of his eyes, the monster leaned over. Sitting in a circle next to Shilin were the leaders of the 4 tribes and 3 human women. Olena, Klaus and Elisa. Your Majesty, why have you become smaller? Olena blinked curiously, and stretched out her hand to stroke the dragon scales on Shilin's body. Others don't dare to be as reckless as Olena. In the entire Noxus, only Olena dared to be like Shilin. It's just a kind of dragon language magic that becomes smaller, and the common language spell is a small spell. Shilin explained to Olena. Olena nodded seemingly. If it weren't for the barbecue banquet, she would have been eager to take out the frost staff and try it. Now all monsters and humans dare not move their mouths, all are waiting for Shilin's order. The barbecue banquet begins. You can move your mouth if you want to eat. Shilin's voice is not very loud, but it can reach everyone's ears. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.